Welcome to Touchlines of Fortitude. It's a celebration of female resilience and creativity in art and rugby. So my name is Agnieszka Łokaj. I am artist and curator based in Twickenham, and I'm also co-founder of Fortitude Arts. We have lots of, I shouldn't say, the project was possible thanks to funding from Arts Council England. Apart from the talk today, we also have a few events happening in Twickenham and Teddington. So we have a talk today at 6 p.m. at the Exchange in Twickenham, so you can always invite your friends or your family to attend the talk. At the Beach Gallery in Teddington, we have an exhibition of 3 female local artists, and that runs till Sunday. And then we have a new exhibition starting on Wednesday, which is a group exhibition. I have some leaflets at the tables there, so at the end of the talk, please go and have some leaflets and invite your friends and family to our talks. I'll introduce you to our host. This is Wendy Southern, and she's also co-founder of Fortitude Arts.
So good afternoon, and thanks for welcoming us here at Waldegrave School. So my name is Wendy Southern, and as Agnieszka said, I'm the co-founder of Fortitude Arts, along with her. And we help women and girls build resilience, confidence, and creativity by bringing together the power of arts and the strength of sport. Our vision is simple, that every girl and woman sees herself as strong, creative, and capable, whether that's in school, field, or in life. So today's panel is about female resilience, the ability to bounce back when things are difficult, to keep going when life goes the way you don't expect it to go, and to find strength in your own voice. Especially now with you guys going into your GCSEs right now. New subjects, new teachers, new pressures, big decisions ahead. On top of that, you're working out on who you are, who you want to be. So resilience is what helps you face setbacks, deals with stress, and still move forward with confidence. So today we have speakers that will tell their story, and then we'll have a panel discussion, and then after that we'll open the questions to you guys to ask any questions you want. So we're lucky to have 3 incredible speakers with us today, all who know what it means to build resilience in a very different and inspiring way. So we start off with our first speaker, which is Alison Kervin OBE. So our first speaker is a true trailblazer. Alison was the first woman ever to referee a rugby match in Twickenham, and later become the first female sport editor of a national newspaper, the Mail on Sunday. She's written over 40 books, from novels to biographies, and led campaigns that changed how sport protects athletes. Today she continues to lead in journalism, publishing, and media strategy. Alison shows us how resilience means breaking barriers, and then holding the door open for others. So please welcome Alison Kervin.
Hi everyone, thank you for that lovely introduction. Resilience, so I was a sports journalist for many years, and now I'm a novelist. I mainly write books. As a sports journalist, when I first set off, because I'm like a million years old now, when I first began, there were no other female sports journalists around. But I just thought to myself, this is what I want to do, I'm going to keep going anyway. So I sent ideas off to all the newspapers I could find names for. Sent regular letters to them. Actually, it was letters and faxes back in these days. There were no emails. So I sent all these ideas, and they wouldn't even reply to me. And then once I got a reply saying, this is just not any good. And I told a friend who said, you know, I think perhaps they just don't want a woman to write. So then I wrote another list of ideas, sent it off, just signed from A. Kervin, rather than Alison Kervin. Sent it off, they came straight on the phone, and they wanted my work. They just didn't want a woman to write for them. And that's appalling now, isn't it? When you think about it, it's all changed quite a lot since I was at that age, but there are still huge difficulties for women that need to be overcome, and resilience is the way to do it. I went on to have a great career, and as you've heard, I ended up getting an OBE from the Queen, and when I went to get the OBE, I sat there and thought, ha, all those sports editors that wouldn't cover my articles. You can do it, you can break through and do whatever you want to do. One of the key things I heard in sport, because in sport it's particularly relevant, isn't it? If you're on the cricket pitch and a ball comes and you drop it, and all the opposition fans are booing and shouting at you, and you've got to pick yourself up and carry on for day after day, that's resilience, that ability to bounce back. One of the most interesting things I heard from a guy called Clive Woodward, who I don't know if any of you know anything about rugby. He led England, he was the coach of England when they won the World Cup, and I wrote a book about him. And he said to me, if you fail, it doesn't make you a failure. I think that's really important to remember. If you write an essay, you send it in and you get a bad mark, that doesn't mean you're a failure. That just means you wrote a bad essay. Drop it, move on, and keep going. They have a saying in the army called FIDO. Well, be careful. They use slightly different language in the army. There's a different word for the F, but it's forget it, drive on. If something happens that's terrible, just keep going, keep ploughing through. So now I write novels. I went a while ago to see the house that Enid Blyton used to live in. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Enid Blyton, the famous Five, the Secret Seven, and there's some nods and things. She's sort of J.K. Rowling of her time, and hugely, hugely successful. And we walked through this house. It was all beautifully wallpapered and had all been updated. But in this one room, there was really scruffy wallpaper. It just looked terrible. And I said, what has happened in here? And they said, this room here was wallpapered with all the rejection letters she got, to remind her that she had tried and tried and tried, and here she was, succeeding. So even the very greatest, every great sports person will say to you, the reason they're successful is because they bounce back after failure. And that's pure resilience. I'll just tell you one story about when I first got started. So I'd sent all these letters off, and they'd said to me, I just got no response most of the time. When I did get a response, it was all, you're not really interested. And so I'd sent off my letters with A Kervin, missing out my first name, so they didn't know I was female. And I'd pitched this idea about the doctor of the England rugby team. The England rugby team were playing in a big match against Scotland, and I discovered that the doctor looking after the players was Scottish. I thought, that's quite interesting. I wonder which team he really wants to win. So I tried to get a meeting with him. So I phoned up the doctor's surgery and said that I was a sports journalist wanting to interview this doctor. And the receptionist said, no, you don't sound like a sports journalist to me, and put the phone down. Okay, right. So I phoned back again, and another woman answered and said, no. So I thought, what am I going to do? And I'd only just moved to this area, so I thought, right. And I don't advocate this, the teachers might be cross with me saying this, but so I thought, right, I'm going to ring up and pretend that I've got an injury so I can go and see the doctors. So I phoned up the doctor. These were in the days when you could easily get a doctor's appointment. So I rang up the doctor's surgery and said, okay, I've just moved to the area and I've really hurt my ankle. I haven't got a local doctor. I wonder whether I could come in and see Dr. Guilford. They said, yes, we'll make you an appointment for 3. So I went to the surgery at 3, feeling terrible. Walked through the door, hobbling with my imaginary injury. Got to reception and she goes, go and sit down there and we'll tend to you in a minute. And then she pointed upstairs and said, that's where the doctor is. So all the people in the surgery got up to help me as I hobbled up the stairs with this terrible injury. And then I got into the room and said to the doctor, oh, I'm so sorry. I've completely lied to you. I'm not injured at all. I just wanted to interview you. And he was wonderful and said, come back at 6 o'clock and we'll do a big interview. So then I ran down the stairs feeling wonderful. And all the people down there in the waiting room looked up and went, oh! And I said, he's magnificent, he's just cured me. So suddenly all my injury was gone. But that interview I did in those rather dubious circumstances got me a big job on the Times, which really kicked off my career. So I don't recommend that you start lying about injuries, but sometimes you just have to overcome these hurdles. And you can do whatever you want. You're all sort of bright-eyed, and look at you all, wonderful. Back to your GCSEs, you've got your whole lives ahead of you. And the one thing you mustn't do is let any little setbacks hold you back, because they just don't matter. Just stand up, get on with it, fight back. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Our next speaker is an artist, writer, and researcher who dives themes of resilience, identity, and social change. Kate is the founder of RuptureXIBIT, a creative hub in southwest London, and their work has been shown in galleries across the UK and the US, from the Aspen Art Museum to the Orleans House in London. Through painting, performance, and installation, Kate uses creativity to help people understand themselves and the world in new ways. So please welcome Kate Howe.
Hi, y'all. I'm not from here. I don't know if you guys can tell by my accent. Try not to let it throw you. I've never heard such a quiet, well-behaved group. I'm used to a bit more chaos and mayhem. And that's kind of what I'm here to advocate for Sorry guys. But I wrote something that I wanted to share with you, but I think instead of doing that, I might just spend this moment to talk to you about sort of my experiences and my story a little more personally. So I was an artist. I'm from an artistic family. I am from California originally, and I've moved over 110 times due to various reasons and circumstances in my life. This can be a really super destabilizing experience to get uprooted and moved around all the time, and I continued it after I left my home, and I left when I was very young. So I faced a lot of obstacles in my life. But as you know, I'm from America, where we're told we have to win. It's all about winning, you know what I mean? To be great and be the best. And so I had these two forces in my life that were really pulling me in opposite directions. One was saying, obstacle, 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 pain, stop, slow down. And the other one was saying, be the best, be perfect, be the best, be perfect. My sister is a visual effects producer in Hollywood. She lives in Los Angeles. And I don't know if you guys have heard of like unreachable stereotypes for women perpetuated by Hollywood, but the closer you get to Los Angeles, the more insane this reality becomes. And it's everywhere, obviously. So there are pressures from all ways to be a certain something. And I hated that. I don't know about you guys, but I do not like being told what I'm capable of and what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. So one of the things that I learned in my life was to push back. Now, I had to learn to push back appropriately. I had to learn how to push back, when to push back, where to push back, who were my allies, and who could help me push. So first, I just pushed everywhere, and that got me nowhere. That got me in a lot of trouble, actually, into a big hole that I had to dig myself out of. So obviously, pushing against everything because I was angry wasn't helping me get where I wanted to be, which was to this fictitious place where I could win. And what does that even look like, you know? So my mom was a painter. My dad was an opera singer. They were both really successful in their businesses, and my sister works in Hollywood. So I had concepts of what winning could look like. It was this fabulous overcoming into this wonderful freedom, but I couldn't find it in my own life. I felt for a long time like I was less than. And I didn't know how to be who I was when who I was being told that they were wrong and they were in trouble all the time. Like how? So what I wanted to talk to you guys about is the fact that resilience comes through experiencing these terrible moments. It is this investigation, the very investigation, the insistent investigation that you do into who you are and who you want to be, that builds that resilience. The journey, it's not possible to do it smoothly. That's not even the goal. If you did it smoothly, you would have no resilience because you would meet no obstacle ever. And it is that sand in the oyster that makes the pearl. It is truly that grit that actually helps you overcome, and it is frustrating that that is true. But I wanted to share with you, at one point, I had been in school for a little while, and I left school. And in America, when you leave school before you graduate, it's very, very difficult to get back on that treadmill. One of the things that I think is wonderful about the school system here is that you can resit your exams at any point, and you can get another shot if you've been through something difficult or you've had some obstacle come up, you know? And so I left school, and I was not sure how in the world to find my way back. I was following in my mother's footsteps, trying to be a painter, trying to be an artist, but I was really pulled in a lot of different directions due to reasons. Some of those reasons were that I was female, and I was growing up in the 90s, and I wanted to be a figurative painter, and that wasn't cool in the 90s. The figure was dead, painting was dead, and women shouldn't paint, in America especially, you know. And I was stubborn enough to push against that. So I started to make a little bit of progress. but I really wanted to find my people to help pull me forward. So I started looking. I thought, I have a great way to get out of this problem. I'll look for external validation. I'll look for somebody to tell me. So like pushing on everything wasn't working. So I was going to start looking for, my Mr. Miyagi, my champion. I was going to look for my coach, and that coach was going to tell me, now you're ready, now you're good enough, go. Right? It might have been my love of all these underdog movies too that my sister shared with me, like you can do it if you find the right coach and circumstances. So I spent a lot of time looking for somebody else to tell me that I was good enough. And what I did was I spent a lot of my energy looking for that person out there looking this way. And what I finally figured out after ages and ages is the struggle is real, the struggle is worth it. Stop looking this way, stop pushing on everything, and start looking this way. I am the only person that can say if my work is doing what I want it to do. I am the only person that can say if I am good enough. That choice lies in here, not out there. Even if somebody in the external world at the top of their game anoints you from on high and says, congratulations, you have achieved personhood. Like, what are we even trying to go after anyway? But, you may join the team, you may have the job, you may get the chance, you may have the shot. If you don't feel it and believe it in here, you won't be able to follow through on that anyway. So forgetting the idea of winning, forgetting the idea of perfect, and going toward who am I? What do I want for me to live a happy, content, creative, exciting life that's full of good relationships? Like, that's what I want. And as soon as I made that shift, can I tell you, oh my gosh, 8 years ago I had no degrees. Now I'm getting a PhD and I'm working with the V&A Museum, and I run a wonderful experimental creative community down the street from you guys. I had a 10-year career as a backcountry ski guide in which I got 26 first descents. I was very successful. You guys have never heard of me, have you? But I'm very successful. I was winning. That's my point, is that it's not about other people knowing how you've done it. It's about you walking that path by yourself, and how incredibly scary it is to walk that path by yourself. Maybe with some good friends near you, but ultimately by yourself. And choosing to see that fear that's out there and walk toward your fear with curiosity and ask it what it can teach you. Whatever it is that you're turning away from in fear, that's the lesson right there. That's the friend. That's the movement you can make toward your freedom and your emancipation. That's what I have to say about resilience. Resilience is necessary and built when you get over yourself enough to make friends with your fear and become yourself, not somebody else's version of you. Thanks.
Our third speaker brings the world of rugby and performing arts together. Sarah is the club captain for the Thamesian RFC women's team, where she helped build the squad from the development side into a league team. She knows firsthand what it means to dig deep, play through injuries, and keep going for your teammates. Alongside rugby, Sarah is also the principal of Stagecoach Performing Arts in Chiswick, where she helps young people discover their creativity and confidence through drama, music, and dance. She's proof that resilience is built both on field and on stage. Please welcome Sarah Brindley.
Well, hello, Year 10. How are we? All right? Yeah? Cool. Yeah. Thank you very much for that introduction. So yes, that's me in a nutshell. I'm in a nutshell. So, thinking about linking sport and performing arts might seem a bit random, a bit weird, but actually there's quite a lot of parallels. So obviously, if you're on stage, you're performing, you've got your theatre company around you. If you're on the pitch, you've got your teammates around you, and you're all in it together. it's a team effort, right? I think you're doing My Fair Lady, are you? Soonish? So that's going to be a huge team effort. You've got not only the people on the stage, you've got all your backstage helpers and workers, and everyone's aiming for the same result. Same on the rugby pitch. Everybody wants to win, obviously, but also everybody wants to play well. You want to play well for your teammates, and that's a huge driver, I think. So for me, if something goes wrong anywhere, on the stage, on the pitch, in my life in general, you have to really sort of think about how you're going to get beyond that, how you're going to get past that, who you're doing it for. So you guys, you're about to embark on a really important couple of years. Things are not always going to go brilliantly. You are brilliant, but things will not always go brilliantly. And what it's about, really, resilience for me, is not about what happens, but how you deal with what happens. What do you do about it? How do you deal with the setbacks that you encounter on your way? So, for example, professional actors, you won't get every job you go for, and on the rugby pitch, you don't win every match that you play. We played a match last weekend, and we lost quite badly, but we played really well, so that's a win for us. And we play for each other, we play for our teammates, and if something goes wrong, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. If I drop a ball, because sometimes I do, I mean I'm excellent, but sometimes I do. If I drop a ball, if I miss a catch, or I miss, we don't get through, or you don't hit the tackle properly, that's it's fine, because you've got 14 other players with you, surrounding you and saying, move on, leave it, shake it off, it's fine. Because that's just one part of it. I don't know about you guys, but if you get caught up in what you've done wrong, you can't move forward and correct it or improve on something. And I think that is part of being really resilient. So I ran my own business. I worked at Stagecoach as a teacher before I owned my own business, and I worked at head office as well. I've been through a lot of different roles and jobs in my little career. I've never really thought of myself as a strong person or a particularly resilient person, but the changes that I've experienced and where I am now today, running my own business, having the best time of my life, thank you everyone. That is because I've never given up, I've totally believed in myself, and I've never listened to anybody who told me that I couldn't do it. If you have, and I've got my own voices in my head that tell me I can't do it as well. I don't know if you guys have got those, these little things in your head that just go, you won't be any good at that, or maybe don't try that. When I was younger, I used to avoid things that I didn't think I was very good at because I wanted to be good at everything. Everything I did, I wanted to be good at. But actually, that's no fun, because sometimes half of the fun is getting it wrong and then working out how to make it better. I've been in a lot of plays where things have gone horribly wrong. I was in a play and it was all going swimmingly, and we would have drinks on the table, and somebody came in, did a lovely sachet across the stage and knocked the bottle flying. So we're all standing on this stage, it's completely wet. We can't ignore it because that would look really weird. So as our characters and as the scene sort of went on, we all just had to we were all looking at each other like rabbits in headlights, thinking, oh no, how are we going to do this? What's going to happen? And in the end, we all just got a load of paper towels and just started mopping it up, as you would. So it's about how you deal with things rather than the things that happen. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah? Because stuff happens all the time. Something will go wrong or something won't be perfect. But perfection is not what it's all about. I don't know if you have seen, you probably have from your fabulous teachers, there's a little diagram and there's a straight line that says, and success is at the top, and there's an arrow going straight to it, but that's not what it's about. And then there's this other one that's like a big messy jumble of squiggles. That's what life is about. It's about the squiggly bits in the middle. So you start off, you have to squiggle around, and then in the end you get to where you want to go. but it's the squiggling that's the fun. So you'll meet people. So I've met so many people throughout my acting career, because I went to drama school, I did a bit of acting. I met lots of people there who I'm still really good friends with now. And they support me and they help me on stage, off stage, you know, in all aspects of my life. And the same with the rugby women that I play with. We support each other. But a lot of the time on the pitch we say to each other, back yourself, trust yourself, have confidence in yourself, believe in yourself. And I think that for me is that community where you have people who believe in you so that you can believe in yourself, so that you can stand somewhere in this hall, hopefully, look around and look at each other and say, yeah, we can do this. We can do this because we believe in each other and we believe in ourselves, and that is what it's all about. Keep it up, guys. Thank you.
How do sport and art rebuild resilience?
Okay. Well, having been both a professional athlete and now a professional artist, I can say that I think that the commonalities between art and sport and how they build resilience are
important and not obvious. A lot of people think that people that are artsy can't also be sporty. And to those people, I want to say, like, it's like when my sister was really into photography, but I'm younger than her, and then I found a camera, and they were like, no, Lizzie's the photographer. I was like, are there not enough cameras to go around? Like, what's the problem here? So I think this is a false idea. It's just a stereotype. I think everyone can be pretty much anything. And you can find crossovers as you look around resilience into almost anything. So for me, I had experiences like, I got stuck on the side of a mountain, so I was doing the Ophir to Telluride route in Colorado with this guy, Scotty Kennett, who's in the Backcountry Skiing Hall of Fame, and I am not. And so we were doing this trip, and we got delayed, and the wind came up, and we were at the point of no return, which is where you can't go down, you must go up. So we had like hiked and climbed and come up and taken our skis off and put them on our backpack, and we were in the last 30 feet before you come over, you know? And was like stuck on the wall there, and the wind came up, and Scotty went over the lip, and I was alone. And I realized, like, I'm gonna get blown off this wall, and I'm gonna go to the bottom, and that's gonna be the end of me. And then I heard a voice in my head that said, keep moving, you're not moving. And I realized that not moving because I was scared is A, not going to solve the problem, and B, might compound it, and it's exactly the same at art. So when I make a really big painting, and then I'm thousands of pounds of materials into it, and I'm invested in my heart and soul, and part of me wants it to come out well, lots of times I will freeze. And I will hear that same voice that says, keep moving, you're standing still. And it doesn't mean like make random marks to try to solve the problem. It means keep moving in here. What do you need? Like work the problem. And so for me, you know, I'll thrash around against myself and say, like, I don't know. And then I'll hear this voice that says, well, what do you know? Do that. Like, I know this little area in the bottom left is pink. Then paint it. Let's go. Pink. Come on. You know? So, all right, fine. And sometimes, you know, you have to peel yourself off the floor to get there, and then, poof, you've done something, and it's unlocked the possibility. The best thing that happens is when that decision was the one really wrong decision. But it's still open to painting. It's still open to the possibility, and you still learn something from it. And I think those parallels of difficulty and choice in difficulty, okay with being uncomfortable, is really where they overlap for me.
Alison, would you like to talk about this one?
Yeah, sure, yeah. So I'm a writer, not an artist, obviously, so in terms of writing, what can be very frustrating is it takes so long to write a novel. So you sit there and you plan it all out, and you have all these wonderful cascade of characters that you're going to throw into this book, and you get the book finished, and then no one wants it, or no one buys it, or it doesn't sell anywhere near as many as you thought it would. And it's incredibly frustrating because the sales of something aren't always anything to do with the quality of the product you're writing. So I think like we've all been saying really, you have to somewhere inside you decide, that's all right, I wrote a really good book and I'm really happy with that book. And when we talk about resilience, I think one thing to mention probably is it doesn't have to be about high-level stuff like writing books and on the side of a mountain. Resilience in everyday life, in all the little things that you do, can be really important. I remember when my son was a little boy, I had an au pair who came to stay for a few months, and she said to me that she wanted to learn English, but she wanted to be a really high-level English learner. And I said, well, I think you probably have to start at the bottom. And I got back that night, and we had answer phones in those days. And I played the answer phone, and it said, a message for Petra. You came in today wanting to learn to speak English on our course. I'm afraid you have to go to the beginner's course first. You can't come to the next course. And I told her this, and she went, oh. And then the next night I got in, there was a message saying, hi Petra, I understand you came into the office today to talk to us. The issue still remains, you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. You can't just start. And this went on for days, where I'd come back and play these messages. And I was trying to explain to this lovely Spanish girl that you have to start at the bottom, that's the way it works. And she went, no. And then about a month later, there was a message on her answer phone saying, okay, Petra, it's fine. You can go on to the advanced course. That was just pester power, just keep. So even in all sorts of little areas, I had an incident last night where my son's 25 now. But I got a call from Accident and Emergency saying you're listed as the, I can't remember what the term is, a sort of person who, next of kin, there we go, next of kin. I'm a writer, I can't do words. You're the next of kin for George Kervin Evans. And I said, yes, it's Kingston Hospital here. What's happened? And they said, we can't talk to you about what's happened because he's over 18. I said, well, don't bring me and say that then. But I kept on and on and on. So I want to speak to the doctors, I want to speak to that. And as it was, he cut his finger and had 7 stitches in his finger, so it's a little bit nasty. But just by going on and on and on, I got there. So sometimes it's just in little areas of your life where something matters, pushing and pushing. All the grand things like writing books and being on a rugby field and sort of doing the right thing. So it's just all the little areas where if something really matters to you, you can do it. You can just push and push and push, and you will get there.
This question is for both of you. Who has been a key role model for you, and what did they teach you about resilience?
Do you want to get
You can start there.
Thank you. Oh, that's interesting. A key role model. Well, hilariously, I'm going to say my younger sister. My younger sister is absolutely smashing. She is a primary school teacher. She's head of primary. She lives in Kathmandu, and she teaches at the British International School in Kathmandu. She is my hero. She is my best mate, and she's completely bonkers, just saying. But the reason that she's been such an influence for me, actually, and a role model, is she just, like, when we were younger, she idolised me, which is nice. But it meant that she totally believed in me, and if ever I said I was going to do something, she assumed I would, and had complete confidence in me all the time. So she has been that support for me all of my life. And there was a couple of years ago, we were having a conversation about something, I can't remember what exactly, and I said, oh, I'm just a bit worried, Sal, what if it goes wrong? What if it doesn't work, or what if it, it doesn't quite work out, whatever. And she said, Sarah, it's you. Of course it's going to work. Of course it's going to be brilliant. You're doing it. Just, it's not even, why are you even thinking that it won't happen? So for me, that's why she is somebody that I just feel her support all the time. And so it is that whole thing. I don't know if you guys watch Wednesday Addams, the whole what would Wednesday do? I've got what would Sally do? So that's my little thing in my head is, and that's what keeps me going. And sometimes when I think, oh my goodness, this day could start all over again, that'd be good. And then I have a little breather, have a little cup of tea, and then say, right, what would Sally do? Because she's got an answer for everything. So yeah, that's what helps me through.
Yeah, it's kind of very boring to say family members again, but mine would definitely be my mum, who she was a physicist, and was at the time when women couldn't go and study physics at university, and she did. And she had always had this attitude, just do it. And every time I'd say, oh, we want to do X, Y, Z, she would just say, just do it. And I think that's quite refreshing, isn't it, when someone cuts through, and rather than your friends who sit and go, well, if you do it, this could happen, that could happen, do pros and cons. She didn't get involved in anything about it, just said, just do it. And sometimes you need someone to sort of say to you, you can do it. If you want to do it, just do it. That's all there is. You can do it. So what are you messing around about doing lists of pros and cons?
I love that. I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I should have a female role model to give to you guys. And I'm going to say all of my role models have always been male except for my mother. And that's not to say that I don't have female role models like Judith Butler and Griselda Paulin and all kinds of amazing women. But that my formative role models, when I was your age, were all men. And I didn't know there was a difference. That's the difference. I didn't realize that gender was an issue. I didn't realize that all my role models probably had jobs that would be harder for me to get. I didn't know. I just wanted to do what they were doing. So my mom showed me, my mom was a painter, and she showed me a film on the artist Christo, and it's now Christo and Jean-Claude. So his wife is part of the artistic team, and they did that retroactively, which is wonderful. But Christo made a project called The Running Fence in 1971, where, and if you can look it up on YouTube, it's amazing. So he strung these sheets of fabric all the way across the California sort of agricultural land and down into the San Francisco Bay. And it was a nearly impossible project. And watching this film, watching him make friends with, understand the ranchers who were like, you were a French conceptual artist in the early 1970s and you want permission to put a piece of art that runs through my field, like why? But Christo and Jean-Claude went to their houses and talked to them and listened to them and built real relationships with them. And the thing that I learned from Christo was just keep moving in the direction you're trying to go, even if the goal is years away. Many of his projects took more than 20 years to realize, and many of them were doomed, and he did almost all of them. So my thought, when I was trying to move here in 2020, because I got a spot at the Royal College of Art for painting, as a mature student, I decided I wanted to go, but it was 2020, so it was COVID, so it was lockdown, so all the visa places were shut down. And using Christo's logic of go toward the goal I wanted, right? I'm trying to get to the Tate Modern. That's where I'm trying to get. That's in London. So the visa centers that I had at my option were California, Chicago, or New York. And New York is closer to England, so we went to New York. We borrowed somebody's apartment. I was like, hey guys that I work with in skiing, does anybody have a place we can crash on the floor and sleeping bags for a couple of days? 2 months later, the visa centers opened, we got our visas and we came here, but it was through persistence, perseverance, and taking these tiny steps toward the goal, like Christo did, that I got the project done.
What are the biggest challenges you face as a woman in your fields?
Oh, thanks. Oh, well, as an actor, basically there's not enough parts for women. So guys, if you'd all like to write some plays, that would be awesome. Yeah, I think that's part, that when I graduated from drama school, that was a big deal. Not enough female writers, not enough female characters, just not enough female of anything. And also the expectation that women would not be working, they would be at home with the children. I've got 4 kids, by the way, 3 boys and a girl, and it is interesting that they have had different experiences through their lives. But yes, I think the expectation on young women is very different than it is on young men. And I think that's something that we all together can change. You guys are the driving force of change, though. Don't ever forget that. That's off my soapbox.
Well, in sport, obviously, it's very male dominated in most sports, most of the big sports that are public facing. But and so it's been hard, you know, people don't take you terribly seriously. There's an assumption, I think, which doesn't serve men or women very well. And it's the assumption that all men know about sport and all women don't know about sport. And I don't think that helps men that don't know about sport. It certainly doesn't help women that do know about sport. But what's been great recently, and I'm sure you're all in touch with all this, is the way that women's sport has grown phenomenally. And it's just become, I mean, you probably saw the women's football. Did you see the European Championships when England won? Yeah. A few nods and a few shaking heads, but it's that sort of thing. And the idea that sports opened itself up to half the population who were previously denied access to it has been wonderful. And I think it's wonderful for women, not just for women footballers, but it's wonderful that women have access to sport, which is sort of life-affirming and wonderful. And it's the Women's Rugby World Cup at the moment. When I was the editor of a magazine called Rugby World magazine, sort of way back in my career. And one of the campaigns we ran on the magazine was to allow women to play rugby at Twickenham before the men's game, just as a sort of show game to show that the women could play. And it was turned down flat, and people at the RFU, the Rugby Football Union, were saying to me, there's no way that women will ever play football at Twickenham. This is this stadium represents all that's great about masculinity and team sport. And next Saturday, the Women's World Cup final takes place at Twickenham, and it's completely sold out. You cannot get tickets. So within my career, there's been a huge change, which has been quite fundamental in sport. It's still hard, but I think it's wonderful that there's been that change. So in terms of sport, there's a real movement, but it's still kind of thought of as very masculine. It still can be hard for women.
I might say something a little controversial here. That was your warning. Sorry ahead of time. Gosh, that quickly. I think that the biggest difficulty that I have faced as a woman in my many different kinds of careers is that there seemed to have been an expectation when my clients booked me for the day that I was part of the bargain, right? That there is some confusion about whether or not we should adore the people that allow us to join them, whether or not we should be sexually available for the people that we're competing against or working with. And that confusion and pressure changes our concept of ourselves from a subject full of autonomy and authority into a confused, silent object. And so I want to tell you that the way to overcome that is through your voice. You re-subjectize yourself. You change that dynamic when you speak to your friends or to the person, and correct the misconception. So I worked as a body worker for a while also, while I was between jobs. And a body worker is like a massage therapist, right? So like for sport, for high-level sport, right? I worked on professional athletes. This is one of the ways that I made money when I was lower down in the athletic field before I became, high enough up in it to support myself. And there is a very old confusion about what massage therapy can mean, right? And I had to educate people and say, I'm sorry, I think you are confusing my job with that job, with another job, right? I am not actually a prostitute, I'm a massage therapist. So if you'd like to continue with your massage, that's fine. I'm so sorry, I know that this is really it's frightening to talk about, but guess what? What did I say up there? Step toward your fear. The thing that scares you to talk about is probably the thing you should be talking about. That's how you take your agency back, right? You ask why. Why is this expected of me this way? Do I agree with this? Am I signing up for this? And then you show up as a fully constituted person who gets to make the rules and doesn't ask what the rules are.
How do you stay motivated when things get tough? Do you have mantras, rituals?
Oh, I've got it all.
A community?
I've got my what would Sally do? But yes, of course, if things go wrong and get tough, then yes, you have to. You guys will have your own way of overcoming things internally in your head. Sometimes it's that you take a break. Sometimes that it's for me, maybe I go and have a cup of tea.
maybe a nice biscuit, custard cream, maybe. But yeah, I think the things to remember, I think, when things go wrong and when it's not going your way, is that that's okay. Perfection is not really sustainable, so things will go wrong, and it's just how you deal with it. And it's absolutely fine for things to go wrong. Failure is a learning, is a learning moment, and it's what you take from that and how you move on from it. It's taken me quite a long time to learn that, though. But yeah, I think that's, it's the feel the fear and do it anyway. It's that sort of thing. But if it all goes to pot, there will be something that is a silver lining. There will be. There just always is. If you can find it, and even if it's not that great, just hang on to something that is a silver lining. That's what I would do. See the rainbow.
So a lot of, I mentioned the Enid Blyton thing of having the wallpaper with all the rejection letters on it to remind herself of how far she'd come. And a lot of writers, people like Tolstoy, who, don't know the names of it, but they have all the books they've written previously on the windowsill. And that's what I do. I have all the books I've written up. And then when I'm thinking, I can't do this, you have to make yourself look up and go, yes you can. You've done it before, and you can do it again. So there's that very literal stuff. There's also the fact that failure is really important. So when things go wrong, that's part of it. I wrote a book a few years ago about rugby teams that had won the Rugby World Cup. And then at the end of it, I worked out what reasons they all had for winning, and I did a list. And number 2 on the list was that they had suffered a huge defeat just before winning. And it's almost as if by getting something wrong, it teaches you more than getting something right. So failure is important. So if something goes wrong, honestly, it really doesn't matter. And that's hard in your head, isn't it? Because you think, oh, God, I'm so useless, oh, what do I do? But actually, it's all part of the process that builds you into a winning person. So it's a case of being rational, thinking it doesn't matter, Fido, forget it, drive on. And it's also a case of reminding yourself of how far you've come. So for me, it's putting the books on the windowsill.
It's all part of the jigsaw, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, don't panic anymore. I'm done with that. My toolkit for recovering from failure is simple, and that is that I welcome failure all the time. So remembering that every single person that tried to do anything was always, like everybody in this room was a beginner at everything. You know what I mean? So whoever is teaching you, they were also a beginner. They also were terrible at this once. And so recognizing that you can stay in curiosity, in that curiosity of the beginner, and enjoy what it is just to run around and have a go. You know, even if it's really serious and you're supposed to do it well, you will do it more well if you stay in that kind of step to failure, enjoy it, recognize that you are still a beginner, that everyone's been a beginner, that being a beginner is fine, that there's no way to step into anything that you're going to do already as an expert. Like when you were saying, like, I want to be good at everything that I do, but you can't like load it in your brain like the Matrix and then show up fully formed. That's not how it works. So like recognizing the insanity of thinking, you know, okay, I wanted to be perfect at that well, but not only is that not an option, but it's boring. You know what I mean? Let's get in the dirt. Let's enjoy it. Let's learn it. That's where the good stuff is.
Thank you. And the final question from the panel is, how can creativity and physical activity support mental health?
Well, that is a big question. There's the scientific thing of when you exercise, you release endorphins in your brain and that makes you feel better. But also, when I go to rugby training or when I play a match, I am with a bunch of like-minded women who we all have the same goal. We have the same ideas. We're all for a common cause, and feeling that you're part of that community and feeling that you're part of that tribe is very uplifting, and feeling that everybody has your back quite literally on the rugby field, and obviously if you're performing it's the same. Everybody's there, you're all in it together, so the feeling that you're not alone I think is very helpful and very important. Also, I think in an age where we now are online a lot, we can all do online learning and we're on our phones a lot and potentially don't, so for example me and my sister, we don't see each other very often, but we communicate all the time online, but actually physically having another person in the same room as you is actually very good for us. And it is a science, it is like I can't remember all the words of the brain things, but it is actually a scientific thing, that it changes the chemical reactions in your brain to make you feel better. So it does help, it does. And also it's having fun. You guys, you get together and you laugh and you make each other laugh and you snigger and you know, that thing if I pointed at you and say, don't laugh, like don't laugh guys, don't. You can't help it. And that is very uplifting. Laughing, smiling, just changing your face is very uplifting. See, you can't do it.
Thanks. Well, you've very eloquently done the value of sport in terms of mental health. In terms of writing, in some ways, a lot of writers go mad, so I don't know what it is, but it's also, I find it really useful. A lot of people just will write poems or write little stories or write down, just the process of writing down how you feel can sometimes help you to solve it. I've got a friend who sort of dates lots of different men all the time, and she always tells me her dating stories, which always go in the book. So now my friends are scared to talk to me, obviously, because they know everything they say is going in the next book. But I've got one friend, she was treated terribly by this guy, so I put him into the next novel I was writing and killed him on page 3. So it can be quite cathartic, you know, it can make you feel better about the world. And it's also, there's something really joyful about creating characters and making them move through the world in a way that you wish people moved through the world, and analysing your own views of it. It sounds all a bit sort of, I'm up in my head the whole time, but you can have a lot of fun with creating imaginary characters and making them do things, and creating your ideal man and he walks into the room and you're like, yes, okay. So there's a load of fun to be had from writing and creating stories that I find it very uplifting, and I feel it's kind of, if I haven't written for a while, I feel quite low about it. So for me, I find it enormously enriching.
I think that for me, leaning into it is the thing that that makes both sport and creativity really important for mental health. So leaning into it, by it I mean your own personality. You, constituting yourself, being who you are and letting that be okay. So being an artist is one of the first jobs I've ever had where I'm supposed to be more like myself. So I don't know if you can tell, but I have a big personality and I've turned it way down today. But that is what's asked of us often, like, can you please, sure, this is great, everything's great, the CV is great, the whole thing is great, can you just be a little less you? Like, can you be a little less loud? Can you be a little less enthusiastic? Can you be a little tidier? Can you put it in a box? Can you be a little more ladylike? And the answer for me is, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to pay attention to where I am and what is appropriate at the place where I am, but I'm going to meet that place with who I am. I'm going to make sure that I am working toward a career and a life that allows me to be more me, not less me, not me minus 1 or 2, because you only get one life. This is it. You show up and you're you once, and that's it. So I think in sport too, you see these wonderful celebrations of people in sport that we really admire. I'm a massive baseball fan, right? American baseball is my jam. And so what I love about it is that all the various personalities, everybody behaves however they behave. Certain people are really flashy, certain people are really quiet. But leaning into who they are magnifies their potential for enjoyment and success in the sport. And it's the same in art to a certain degree, I really think.
You mentioned ladylike then. That's a really interesting term, isn't it? I don't know what people think about the term ladylike, because if you say gentlemanlike or manly or whatever, you think of someone confident and outgoing. When you think of the word ladylike, you think of someone very prim and proper who doesn't kind of have any impact on the world and sits there very quietly, which is all wrong, isn't it? Ladylike should be, women are incredibly creative and outgoing. They're the kind of future of all mankind, aren't they? Because we have the babies, it's tough to do without us. Yeah,
Yeah.
So I think when you think of the term ladylike, think of kind of being confident and out there and being you, doing everything that you want to do, rather than this pathetic little creature who smiles and sits and is demure. If you want to be demure, but you don't have to be defined by it, do you? You have to be you.
Yeah.
That's the end of my lecture.
Yes.
I think we're going to open the questions to you guys.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say I really love what you said about like the people mistaking what your job is, because like I feel like that does happen to a lot of women. And also my question was, where do you think the actual stereotype of ladylike women came from?
That's a great question.
So, yeah. No, you go ahead.
I'm gonna go ahead and grab that because it's the subject that I'm studying right now, actually. So I'm doing a PhD at the University of Leeds on what I thought was just sort of objects in a museum and how they affect contemporary society. I started looking at objects that display sexual violence and label it as mythic. And as I started to go backwards trying to figure out how they got in the museum and why their subject is covered and changed, I realized that it's because covered and changed is how we constitute women in the world as silent objects. It's a really ancient idea that we have been as women and continue to as women try to push against and change. So for a long time, there were stereotypes that get propagated in culture that try to keep women in the home and try to prop up certain kinds of values without asking them if that's what they want. I am not anti-home. I am married. I have 2 children, okay? Both my children are transgender women. Now, that's an interesting way to look in the world and see these are 2 people that were raised as boys, and they are now adult, and they're women. And I asked myself the question, oh gosh, what did I teach them as their mother? I didn't tell them to stand up straight and close their knees and sit properly and be quiet and tidy up and get smaller. I didn't teach them that. And then I thought, oh my gosh, those lucky girls, you know? So I think that the answer to your question, where did it come from, is it is as old as time. But a further answer to your question is that it doesn't have to be that way if you recognize that you get to say how you want to show up in the world today. And that you get to question why you're being asked to behave certain ways. And would somebody ask the same of a man? Right?
Generally, the answer is no.
Because first of all, I think you've got a lovely voice. You've got a really lovely, confident voice. I was just telling this story about, I've got a little dog called Elvis, and he's a very, very pretty dog. And so my friend came around with her husband last night, and her husband was going, oh look, isn't she gorgeous? And being really gentle with her and stroking her. And I said, it's not a she, it's a he. And he immediately went, oh, is that good boy? And started ruffling up and behaving very differently to a dog. Because his instincts were to be protective and kind and gentle to a female dog and to be rougher with a male dog. And I'm not suggesting that men should go around being rough to females for a minute, but I do think it's an interesting thing, isn't it, how we behave very differently at the merest sight of gender. And obviously that's what leads to this idea of being ladylike, of being appropriate in every setting, and rather than reaching out and speaking out. And no one's suggesting you behave like a mad lunatic and go around biting each other, but you can move beyond that traditional role, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, and it's you're right. It's such an old, like when you read things like Jane Eyre, Sense and Sensibility, all of that, the place of women in that society is very interesting and very annoying. And whilst sort of the subterfuge is that they're all gossipy and all the rest of it, but actually they don't have any power. Take back your power, is what I would say to you. But again, that doesn't mean being disrespectful. That you can be very respectful, but you can stand your ground, be strong, know your worth. And I think that's what I mean when I say that you guys are the drivers of change. Your opportunity in the world is to stand your ground and know your worth. You are valuable. You are no less than any male. And I know that things are changing, but I think we need to really remember that we, as women, we are super valuable, and we, we are knowledgeable, we need to validate each other, and as you guys, as young women, start, coming into the world and finding out what you want to do, there will be lots of setbacks, I think, for you guys. And I don't mean to say that as a discouragement, I mean, this is where your resilience will come in. This is where you can stand there and say, right, hang on, that's not okay, how can I deal with this? What can I do to change this? And if we all take responsibility, then we will get change. If everybody says, well, there's nothing I can do about that, then nothing ever changes. Yeah? Yeah.
I just want to add one thing, hopefully briefly, to that, and that is that change is something that's important to understand, that this idea of sort of feminist movement or this idea of women's empowerment or anything like that is not something that happened before and is finished. That's work that's continuous, that gets passed on. It's work that we all take up, and that's how it changes. That's how ladylike becomes something fierce. Yeah.
My legwork for the next question. Right, the back of the audience.
Hello, my name is Frances. What advice do you have for the young LGBTQ members? That's it.
That's got you written all over it, that question.
You'd like to take that first.
That's a great question and a really important one. Thank you for speaking. Yeah. My first answer is what you just did, speak. That's the very first thing, show up in the world, Being LGBTQ, so I'm a non-binary person, although I do respond to the call of women and female, because it's important that we be all included together. And I think that knowing that there is a long history of not just fighting for equality, which is one part of it, but within that fight, understanding that what you're fighting for is the right just to show up, just to exist, just to be. And so to also work on that part, who is showing up. So to speak, yes, but to speak yourself into existence first with your friends. To go ahead and reach out to groups, not only that you feel like, oh, I found my people, it's important to find your people, but it's really important to create your people, because it doesn't really matter if you're LGBTQIA or not. What it matters is what kind of a person you are in the world, and the way that we break down these ladylike women, men, other categories is to stop othering people, including women. There should not be other. So the way that we create a lack of other is by creating relationships that matter to us and then enlarging those relationships and maybe challenging other people to make friendships with us based on our personhood and not on our sexuality or gender. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Any more questions?
Right, so the next question. Definitely. Right, who has a question? Here we go.
Hi, I'm Daisy. My question is, what's one thing you guys think that we can do as young women to like help make change in our community and help like fight against the patriarchal society that we live in? We all agree that we love that question to start with. And the fact that you're expressing it is kind of a big part of the solution. The fact that you're cognizant of the fact that there are problems that need to be solved. But I think it's also about, as an individual, there's just by living the life you want to live and by reaching out and not being constrained by traditional gender roles, unless you want to be. I think it's important to remember that being a woman or being a man shouldn't inhibit you or give you an extra step up. It's just about doing what you want to do. And being aware, like you just expressed there, of the fact that there are constraints on women and there are kind of fixed impressions of what a woman should or shouldn't be. And by rebelling against those and going for it anyway, you'll make all the difference that needs to be made and encouraging other people. You know, a lot of the thing, the criticism, I can't remember the quote now, but hell is paved with women who don't help other women up or something like that. I've completely wrecked the quote, but it's kind of about if you make it somewhere, if you have a step up, it's pulling other women up with you and supporting them, because you know that's where the future becomes rosier for everybody. But I think the fact you've asked that question is half the problem solved, so well done.
Yeah, I think it is just about turning up. Turning up as yourself, not taking no for an answer in a very respectful way, obviously. But yeah, and being true to yourself, understanding that you are capable of doing whatever it is that you put your mind to. You can do whatever you want. There is, like, the world, at this point, the world is your oyster. You've got to work hard and you've got to fight for it, but you can do anything you want. And that's how we make change. But again, we're not waging a war against, like, men. I love my husband and my sons very much. But it's about also educating, like, my boys, about how they should expect their sister to be able to do exactly what they can do as well. It's that, you know, so that it's that. You've got male friends, yeah? Teach them what we can do as women, yeah? It's all about that, but it's about being true to ourselves and being patient as well with people, and speaking out and explaining that we are a force to be reckoned with.
Right, and I think it's really important, everybody sort of stumbles over this, what is patriarchy? As soon as we start saying words like feminism and patriarchy, there becomes this sort of concern about, is everybody anti-male? And I think it's really important just to clear that up really quickly, that the definition of the patriarchy is a power structure that privileges men at the expense of other groups, all kinds of other groups, especially, white men. So it doesn't mean that men are bad. The patriarchy hurts men. The structure of the patriarchy exists as a powerarchy beyond gender. It's a framework that is ancient, this ladylike problem, right, is ancient and it continues to operate. It's kind of like the tax code. It's been around forever and it has a bunch of stuff in it that's not relevant or valid anymore, but it sort of wakes up like a zombie and continues to operate. And some people think that it's still the way it should be. And so I think that to break the powerarchy, which hurts the men that we love, and the men that we are friends with, and the men that we are in relationships with, and it hurts women by defining them as objects rather than subjects. So it's this old code, not a living thing. And the way that we break it is by not just expecting it to be better, but by insisting that it becomes better. Yeah?
Okay, do you have another question? Okay, oh, they're all coming out. There's some fantastic questions. Okay.
Hi, my name's Flo. Do you think that as a society we've been regressing the rights against women, especially in the appointment of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in America, who are both misogynists? And I saw a headline where J.D. Vance has said career women choose misery and it makes me sick, as it does all of you. So does this worry you guys as much as it worries us?
So I think we'll focus on the fact that we're talking about regressing rather than political figures.
Yeah, nice topical question with Donald Trump in town today, isn't it? I think we're all a bit worried, aren't we? You're right, keeping the politics at the side. There have been some very sort of horrific headlines and horrible things that have been said. And I suppose the thing is not to equate the views of these individuals who make all sorts of comments that are appalled with the general movement underlying women. Yes, it's women, the story for women is getting better, but it's step by step by step. And one of the points you made about it's not over yet is a huge point. That, this is the road to equality, and this is where we are. And we're moving in the right direction. And I think the rhetoric of those few people who speak out and whose words get covered shouldn't be confused with the general path that we're all taking. And they're idiots. And it's indefensible. And some of the things that are said aren't balanced, aren't reasonable, aren't rational, aren't true. And it's a case of, in your own mind, making sure that you're aware of that and that you don't take it seriously. I know he's sort of in charge of the free world, but he's an individual and he doesn't represent everybody he knows. So, but it's a good point to make, and it's a horrible thing to keep reading, isn't it?
I would answer this by saying there's a reason I live in the United Kingdom. But, hi y'all, thanks for having us. We love it here. But I think to build on your point that creativity and sport are two of the ways that we can undercut what is happening. These people are the powerarchy, right? This is a group of people that are trying to consolidate power for their own gain, whatever that may be. They feel like they get forward by pushing other people down and climbing over them. And that's the opposite of what Alison was saying about lifting up your sister, right? Part of this idea that women are catty and that women infight and all this is a lie taught by the patriarchy, okay? Which is part of the powerarchy structure. So you can break the patriarchy by lifting up the person next to you. It's that easy, do you know what I mean? So don't let these idiots that think that they have control over you, don't give them your power. It's not okay. It's not okay the things that they say. So question it, speak out against it. Do it personally, do it politically, use art, use writing, use music, dance, and sport to show up as a person with a different opinion and bring your sister with you. Yes, the headlines look very alarming, and yes, it seems like we've regressed. But headlines are just that, they are headlines, and they are taken sometimes out of context, so let's not panic. Also, we've had a summer of fantastic women's sport. We've had the Euros, our Lionesses have won, and we've got our Red Roses, come on the Roses, potentially winning the World Cup. Those are big, big wins for us. So let's focus on the positives and let's try and keep moving, keep striving. And like Kate said, we're all in it together, so pull your mate with you. Let's keep going. But read everything that you can, I would say. Read everything that you can. Some stuff is just not true, so read as much as you can underneath the headlines. Go and research things. If you're not sure, find out. Don't just repeat stuff. Go and find out what it actually is about. Is what I would say about that. I think we have time for one more question.
We've got one more, so if anyone wants to ask a question, so one more. Okay.
Hi, my name is Ruby, and my question is, what's your advice on young women or girls that don't have resilience sometimes?
That don't what?
Have resilience.
Great question, thank you.
stall, shall I?
Yes, you shall.
That's the first tactic, stall. I think it's really important to remember that everybody is human and that there will be times when you are just crushed flat. That happens. It happens to 100% of people, not just women. You know, you will get burnt out. You will think there's nobody on your side. You will think you have messed up in the biggest way. You know, it just happens. These things happen. And I think it's important when you're in a puddle on the floor to ask yourself, from that position, what is the first, most compassionate thing, the littlest thing that I can do for myself right now? Right? Is it compassionate to lay here crying while my eyes hurt without reaching out to a friend? Maybe, or you know, like, if you really ask yourself that question, is it compassionate for me to leave myself alone in my room for 3 days? Is there a more compassionate choice I could make? The answer might be yes, go take a shower. How about a nice long bath? You know what I mean? How about just put the kettle on? Maybe wash your hair, because that hasn't happened in a while. You know, when things get tough, they get really tough really quickly. And so the way that I find my way out of what feels like, you know, somebody's put Mjolnir on me and I can't move at all, is just the smallest compassionate move. It's that tiny step in the direction I'm trying to go. It's just maybe up off the floor to the sink, right? Puts me closer to my goal of wanting to get into the table in one day or something, you know. So I think that's it. It's just the slow, measured steps and turning the compassionate voice that you're looking for out in the world and turning it into yourself to find it in here, right? And then reaching out to friends, and then sort of you can build from there. And then you'll realize that after that experience, you've built a layer of resilience because you made it through that thing. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'd also sort of emphasise that we're talking about all these grand things we've done, and there's no one on this panel that has sort of not suffered, is there? You kind of, and I think it also gets easier as you get older, and you kind of, I suppose, have more setbacks and learn to deal with them. But I know what you mean. Sometimes things go wrong and you feel like, oh God, this is just awful, and you feel like everyone else is bouncing back from things and you're not. But the truth is that it gets easier, and also that, I suppose some of the things I was saying earlier, that kind of just because you failed doesn't make you a failure. It's remembering that this went wrong, but that's all it was, just a little thing, and not getting it out of proportion, not thinking back to find you in any way. So something's gone wrong, let's all just move on. But it's hard, I know it's hard, and if you want to achieve anything, you're going to have setbacks and it's going to be difficult. So it's a sign that you're trying, that you're putting yourself out there, and you should be very proud of that.
Yeah. It is really difficult when you get to a point when you feel like everything's too hard, it's too much. And I think everybody goes through that. They do. And you're absolutely right. That is once you've come through that, then you have a small layer of, like, you've got a little bit of a shield then, and that is a part, you know, that's how you build resilience. But how do you get through it? And it is exactly what Kate was saying. We are all so much more compassionate and kind to our friends than we are to ourselves. So think about yourself as if you are a friend, and if that helps you to be kinder to yourself. It's hard though. We are tougher on ourselves than we are on anybody else. So we have to find a way of being gentle. Be gentle with yourself. We all need that kindness, and we all need that feeling of being loved, I guess, in a way. So yeah, love yourself. Be okay with it going wrong, like we've been saying. Things go wrong, everything goes wrong at some point. Like, you know, our lives have not gone in that straight line from starting to success. There's been lots of squiggles in the middle. And sometimes you just do need to sit on the floor and maybe eat some Starburst, I don't know, or Haribos. Pringles.
Or go for a walk.
Yeah, go for a walk. What I do is I take my dog for a walk because being outside helps me feel better. But find something that gives you your breath back, is what I would say. And you've got it.